black people have a hard time selling their home. I'll probably do a video on a woman who took down all her black pictures and put up white pictures, and her appraisal went up. What's good, y'all? In this video, we're going to be talking about the disparities in home ownership, or African Americans trying to sell their home. But quite frankly, I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play 3 different videos. Then when the videos are over, I'm going to briefly talk about the consequences of this disparity. And I'm not going to talk much, like I said, because the videos that I'm going to share already talk about it. But let's just watch these videos.
It's certainly no secret that home ownership is the pathway to building wealth in America. But what's hard in the Bay Area is even harder for some.
Paul and his wife Tanisha Austin felt like they captured a slice of the American dream in 2016 when they purchased their first home together. They bought the home off market from another black family, hoping to make homeownership a reality for a young black couple. After moving into the home built in the 1960s, the Austins staged major renovations, adding an entire floor and more than 1,000 square feet of space, along with a deck, new floors, a fireplace, and new appliances. Then they got it appraised.
I read the appraisal. I looked at the number. I was like, this is unbelievable.
The family tells me the appraiser was an older white woman, and they're convinced race was a factor. The home appraised for $989,000, just $100,000 more than the Austins got it appraised for before they started the work, despite $400,000 in renovations.
It was like, you know, it was a slap in the face.
The Austins immediately called their lender and pushed back. After a month of escalating their complaints, they were approved for a second appraisal. When the date came, they got creative.
We had a conversation with one of our white friends, and she was like, no problem, I'll be Tanisha. I'll bring over some pictures of my family. She made our home look like it belonged to her.
And it worked.
So it appraised for 1.482.
Yeah.
Which was 50% more than what it appraised for by a couple weeks prior.
Almost 1.5, $500,000 more.
The Austins were outraged and believe this is another ugly result of larger systemic issues.
We know discrimination is in nearly every aspect of the home buying process, and really we need to be addressing it as an industry.
Black homeownership lags across the country, with less than half, only 44% of black Americans owning their own home in 2020. Compare that to 74% for white Americans.
After her grandmother's death, Carlette Duffy set out to buy the family home by refinancing her own house. But after receiving 2 appraisals well below what she thought her home was worth, Duffy worried something might be amiss, especially after the second appraisal.
It's $110,000, $15,000 less than the first one, which is less than 3 months earlier.
So Duffy tried again. This time, she didn't disclose her race or gender, only spoke with the appraiser via email, and
I took all of these down so that they wouldn't be seen.
And on the day of the appraisal, she found a stand-in.
I met with 2 of my girlfriends. Both are married to white men, and I was like, okay, I need to borrow one of y'all husbands.
A bit skeptical at first until we saw the results.
Duffy's home was valued at $259,000, more than double that of her previous 2 appraisals.
I screamed with joy. I was so elated. And then it quickly dissipated. And then I just cried.
Duffy's experience isn't isolated.
Homes in black neighborhoods, equivalent to their white counterparts in similar social circumstances now, are underpriced by 23%, about $48,000 per home. And that adds up to $156 billion in lost equity.
This month, Duffy filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, alleging discrimination in both her appraisal and lending process.
You are taking away my family's ability to create generational wealth.
In statements to NBC News, Citywide Home Loans denied any discrimination and said they are actively participating in the HUD investigation. Freedom Mortgage said they used an automated valuation model after receiving the complaint and stood by the appraised value.
Very sad about doing this, but kind of wanted to document it.
A woman in Florida is recording the moment she has decided to do something really hard.
Because it does seem like one of the few ways that we can achieve economic fairness by just having my husband be in the house by himself and taking down all evidence that he has a black family.
Her name is Abina Horton. She is a labor and employment attorney, and this is her husband, Alex Horton, an artist. When the appraiser came, Abina was there and said she felt something unsettling.
It clicked in my mind almost immediately that I understand what the issue was here. Why did I let myself forget that I live in America as a black person and that I need to take some extra steps to get a fair result?
The appraisal comes back. It is shockingly low. Even the bank couldn't make sense of that number. So she decided to get a second appraisal with a new appraiser. Same house, but something different.
Hey, it's Abina again, and back with another edition of the things that we are taking down from our walls.
There are a few things in my house that are demonstrably black. So clearly the pictures that we have all over the house with all of our family members, with my grandmother getting married back in the 40s.
We have the picture of Charlie Bolden, who's an African-American astronaut. Pictures of me when I was a baby. Black Panther.
She took down all the photos of her family, replacing them only with photos of her husband and his white family. And he is the person in the home when the new appraiser comes. And when the second appraisal comes back, the value of their house has shot up more than $100,000, a 40% increase.
What we found after controlling for education, crime, walkability, and all those fancy Zillow metrics, that homes in black neighborhoods are devalued by 23%, and accumulatively, that's about $156 billion in lost equity. $156 billion would have financed more than 4 million small businesses. It would have paid for more than 8 million college degrees. That discrimination is leading to a widening of the wealth gap. And so one can argue that we're in worse shape than we were 20, 30, 40 years ago.
All right, so you saw that African Americans have a tough time getting a fair value for the homes when they sell it. All of these stories are recent. All of these stories are within the past 7 months. And I know I've heard this when I was in college in my African American studies class. That was about 6 years ago. And I already knew this. If I'm going to sell my house, I have to take down the pictures of black people and put up pictures of white people. This isn't a secret. These people who did that for these videos, they already knew to do that because they probably already heard it before. And it works. And it's a shame that it works, because what that does is that says I have to devalue myself in order to add value to my household. I have to take down my identity from my house in order to add the value. And then you talk about, well, why is it okay to have black pride, but it's not okay to have white pride? Well, white people don't need to reinforce their worth, because their worth isn't being taken away from them in situations like this. And this isn't the only situation where black people's worth are taken away from them, where the value of my house goes down because I'm in it. That takes away my worth. And this isn't the only situation. Not only that, the major effect that this has on the black community is obviously the ability for African Americans to build wealth, as they said multiple times. When you're talking about appraisals of a house, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, as you just seen, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, $500,000 on buying the house. So you're taking millions of dollars out of the black community just in this one sector, just with this one system of racism. All of this is a built-in system to America, and this discrepancy comes from racism, and this racism is systematic. It's systematically increasing the wealth gap between white people and black people as a whole. So this is just something to think about. One of the many plenty examples when you hear about systematic racism and when you have to determine whether it is real and whether it has an effect today. And it has nothing to do with any racist person. I'm not saying that any of these home appraisal people were racist. I'm saying the system that is built is against African Americans, and The proof is in the pudding. We just saw the proof of it 3 times. There's not a whole lot to discuss, and there's not a whole lot that can be disputed. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. All that fun stuff. Here's the question. Are the disparities in African American home ownership the biggest example of systematic racism that we have in America today? Let's talk about it.